Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is John Littoral, host of Literal Truth Biblical Studies and also host of literaltruth.com. And this video is mainly going to be directed for the viewers of my Literal Truth Biblical Studies BitChute channel, though I will probably go ahead and upload it to other platforms as well, just in case, there are people on my regular BitChute channel that might be interested in this book that I published a couple years ago. And what this book is, it's called the Early Church Fathers Study Bible. And that's what it is. It is a study Bible, and it is one volume of the New Testament. Every book in the New Testament, it has the scripture text, just like any typical Bible would have. But it also has some study tools with it, such as a very handy cross-reference apparatus, to where as you're reading the scripture text and you want to find where the other places in the Bible that is directly linked to what you're reading, that's what that apparatus is for. So you can, it gives you the Bible book, chapter and verse, and so you can look up the other places that there are cross-references. Then it has one of the key features to this study Bible is over 2,000 footnotes. And the footnotes are to each book of the Bible. After each chapter, you will have a bunch of footnotes, and what these are for is to help you to understand the meaning of the scripture text. If you've ever read the Bible, you will find as you read the scripture text, there's some stuff that's just pretty well self-explanatory. But there are places in scripture, there's a lot of places in scripture that is not so self-explanatory. Some of it can be very, very complex and bizarre in some cases. Because throughout the Bible, there's different styles of writings, and there are some things that need to be understood. Some of it needs to be understood just literally. Understand it. You read it and you understand it because it just says what it means. But then there are times where scripture text needs to be understood in an allegorical sense, in a spiritual sense. And some of those passages of scripture can be quite difficult to understand. So these footnotes, that's what this is designed for. So if you run onto a passage, you want to understand more about it and want some clarification, just look at the footnotes, and these footnotes provide an explanation and interpretation of the scripture text, kind of like a Bible commentary. And so what makes these footnotes unique compared to most other study Bibles is because these footnotes are direct quotes from the early church fathers. And the early church fathers are the earliest Christian writers. And so the period of the early church fathers began somewhere around apostolic times, right around and right after the times of the apostles 2,000 years ago, the apostles that were taught by Jesus. So we do have libraries upon libraries of all types of writings from these ancient Christians. And that period of time goes from the times of the apostles up to about the first 700 years, close to 800 years. That's considered the time of the early church fathers, the patristic period. So all these 2,000 plus footnotes are all direct quotes from these ancient Christians. These ancient Christians wrote a number of different styles of writings, different types of writings. Some of them wrote Bible commentaries, which means that they took a particular book of the Bible and commented verse by verse and gave their interpretation and meaning of the scripture text. Those were very handy, obviously, when it comes to getting compiling the footnotes for the study Bible. But there are also all types of different writings by these early church fathers as well. Some of them wrote sermons. Some of them wrote homilies. Some of them wrote letters to other people, to other churches. And some of them wrote apologetic works. Some of them wrote polemic works. And so when I compiled all the footnotes for this study Bible, I consulted and gleaned from all these writings. And that's why I have over 2,000 footnotes for this study Bible. And I guarantee you, as you go looking in the study Bible, as you go think of any Bible passage that you consider to be difficult to understand, I guarantee you, you will find at least one footnote in the study Bible that explains the meaning of it. So, this was a project that I had worked a lot of years on and always wanted to do, because I had always been, I'd always loved the early church fathers. I'd studied their writings and benefited greatly from them in my own research and study of the Bible. They offer a unique perspective on understanding the Bible. Because today, if you look at a modern study Bible with modern footnotes, oftentimes the footnotes that are in these study Bibles are from a 20th or 21st century perspective. But these early church fathers, when they commented on the scriptures, this is based on ancient Christianity and what the ancient Christians believed and understood about the Bible and the meaning of the scripture text. So this is obviously a very unique type of study Bible. You won't find many works out there that is similar to this. There are slightly a few study Bibles that did kind of the same thing that I did. But about the only thing that you will find that will be close to what I did is not a study Bible, but it is a commentary series called the Ancient Christian Commentary on Sacred Scripture. That's what it's called. And from IB Press. An excellent piece of work, but it's in many, many different volumes. And so this right here has the whole New Testament all together. It's all compact, and it's all, it's all one volume. So you don't have to buy bunches and bunches of different volumes of it. And so when I published this and set the price for it, I set the price at the lowest price that I possibly could, which is $20, which is a steal for a piece of work with this much content, and so much content that required a tremendous amount of research and study, and years and years of work, years and years of labor of my own. So I'm not making any money off this at all. And so this video is to let people know that you can get this as a free PDF. I will provide a link in the description box below to my website. And as you can see, I've got the webpage pulled up. There's the cover of the Bible, of the study Bible that I put together. I gave a little description, and you can download the free PDF of it. And you can use it however you want to use it. And then under that, if you do want to buy it in print, you can buy it on Amazon. And I provided a bunch of different links to all the different Amazons throughout the world. So, if you're from the United States, you can click onto the US. If you're from the UK, you can click on the UK Amazon. So on, so on, and so on. Even Japan, even China, even Australia, Canada. So I've got all the links there as well if you decide you want to buy it in print. But again, you can get it for free on my website on a PDF. And here's the little description that I gave on my website. It says, 2 years ago, I published the Early Church Fathers Study Bible, New Testament, KJV, which means King James Version, April 5th, 2020. This is a study Bible that I created that has over 2,000 footnotes that are direct quotes from the early church fathers, and it also provides a handy cross-reference apparatus. Below is a free PDF that you can download and use however you choose. So I've got the PDF pulled up, and I'll just show you some examples of what it looks like on the inside of the book. And this is the PDF. Right now I got it on the beginning of the Gospel of Matthew. And you will notice that before the scripture text, at the start of every book of the New Testament, there is a introduction. And just like all the footnotes that are direct quotes from the early church fathers, every introduction to each book of the Bible that tells you about who the author is, who they wrote to, the purpose of the book, and so on, that is direct quotes from the early church fathers as well. And which is extremely handy, because I think it's important. If you're going to read any of the books of the Bible, it's always important to, get a little bit of information about the background of the book. Understand what the theme of it is, who it's written to, who it was written by, who it was written for, and all that. And then after each quote of every footnote and every introduction, you will find that I give the source. As you can see, this one right here is from Jerome of Stridon, and also give the date of each of the writers as well. Jerome of Stridon wrote and lived somewhere between 347 to 420 AD, and also give the what writing that it comes from, and also have in the back an index for the sources. So you can see the little number 51. If you go to the back of the book and look at that marking, it'll tell you exactly everything about that book. The translators, the publishers, and all that kind of stuff. So everything's well indexed and everything's well sourced. So to take a look, as we look at the scripture text, I also provide what's called pericopes. Let me zoom in on the pericope. And the pericope is just kind of like a short little brief intro to each little section, each little paragraph. Each paragraph has basically a theme to it. And this one is, starting with the genealogy of Christ. And another thing that I add on to this is within the Gospels is I not only give you, the book, chapter, and verse of the scripture text that you're reading, but also where else in the Gospels that place is also mentioned. Because you will find that the four Gospels, they all tell the same story. Some of them give a little different details than what the other ones do. But for the most part, they all tell pretty much about the same story. So I also give the location of where, each section, where you can find it in the other Gospels. Very, very extremely handy tool. As you can also see in the text, the scripture text, I got all the words of Jesus in red. So just with a glance, you can look at the scripture text and see all the places that are where Jesus actually spoke. Now at the bottom, after the scripture text of each chapter, I have the cross-reference apparatus. So you can easily look, you can see in verse 1 of chapter 1 of Mark, you have the cross-reference apparatus and all the different verses and the other places in the scripture text. Now, my favorite part of this study Bible is the footnotes. And each chapter of each book of the Bible has a compilation of footnotes. And you can see at the beginning of the footnote, it tells you which one this footnote is talking about. Chapter 1, verses 1 through 3. And so that gives you the explanation and the meaning of that scripture text. And also give the source from where it comes from. As you can see, that very first footnote in the Gospel of Matthew comes from an early church writer, 4th century writer called Ambrosiaster. And I give the source, and it shows questions on the Old and New Testament. And that's a work that I had translated and published a number of years ago. So I used a lot of the works that I was involved in, translation projects and books that I published. So, I even utilized a lot of the works that I have done in the past and published. You'll find as part of the compilation of the footnotes as well. But I did draw from a lot of different sources. And as you can see, that's a whole section of footnotes right there on the screen, just for chapter 1 of the Gospel of Matthew. And then we go into chapter 2, same thing, and it goes all the way to the end of the Bible and the book of Revelation. And so that's what it looks like. And as you can see, you find a lot of the red letters in the book of Revelation as well, because Jesus is quoted many times in the book of Revelation. And just with every other book of the Bible, I provided a ton of footnotes, and the book of Revelation is no different. All these footnotes come from the early church fathers, the ancient Christians. And so I've got a lot of them. Here in the book of Revelation, just here in chapter 11, you can see there's footnotes from Censarius of Arles, Hymo of Auxerre, Ambrose Otpert, Tertullian of Carthage, and so on and so on and so on, Pseudo Hippolytus, and so it's jam-packed, plumb full of footnotes. And now here's another feature that I added on to it that I think is unique. I don't know of any other study Bible that adds this to it, but also provided the New Testament and the canonization. And what this is, these are sections where ancient Christian writers gave their assessment of what they believed was inspired scripture and what isn't. So I provide that as well. I go to the oldest source that we have of that, called the Muratorian Canon, which was written somewhere between 170 to 200 AD. And this is a list of New Testament books that were considered to be inspired by that particular writer. Then also Origen of Alexandria, I give his assessment. Eusebius of Caesarea, Cyril of Jerusalem, the Synod of Laodicea, Athanasius of Alexandria, so on and so on and so on. I give a bunch of them, all in the chronological order. So here at the very end of this study Bible is an index of the sources that I was telling you about. So if you actually want to go and look at all the particulars of the sources that I quoted, it's all indexed real nicely in the very back of the book. So, wanted to give you a rundown. Like I said, I'll leave a link in the description box below to a link to my website to where you can download this free PDF, use it however you want, copy from it, cite it, quote from it, whatever you want to do. But it's very unique, and you can't beat the price. Free. So, folks, I appreciate everyone. Share this link, if you will, so others, people that you think might enjoy this work and might find some benefit of it. And take care. Have a good day.